Alpine Touch has been a staple of Montana for nearly 8 decades. Folks around the Treasure State have been putting Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasoning on their steaks and burgers for longer than most of us have been alive. The holidays are coming up. If you want to knock everyone's socks off, be sure to pick up some Alpine Touch Cold Smoke Rub for the best flavor for your Thanksgiving turkey or your Christmas prime rib. Alpine Touch comes in the mail right to your door. Just visit alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Well, back for another week here on the Big Sky Breakdown, as well as the Skyline Sports YouTube channel. UC Davis head coach Tim Plough joining us. Aggies into the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs. They play at South Dakota on Saturday. Coach, I was trying to think of a name for this since we've been doing this regularly. I feel like we need to come up with a name. I was thinking like Aggies After Dark, since we always
I like it. I like Aggies After Dark. That's good.
We always do this in the evenings and you guys play at night from time to time.
I like it.
How many night games did you guys play this year?
Most of our games are at night because early in the season it gets pretty warm.
It's so hot, right? Yeah.
I want to say probably at least 9 of the 12, 9 of the 13 were probably at night.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Aggies After Dark, here we are. And if we ever do
I like it
before dark, but it's good. It's catchy. So, first of all, one thing I was talking with Princeton Toki about earlier, and by the way, great interview. Love talking to him.
Toki, he's the man.
Yeah, he's the man for sure. But he was talking about how the coaching staff transition there at UC Davis this year was made a little easier because there were so many guys that they were familiar with, guys that had been on the staff. You were not an unfamiliar face. You had been on the staff, especially with some of these seniors previously, and you kept a lot of guys too. So just talk about that element, just sort of the continuity that you were able to maintain on the staff and how that sort of eased your transition into your first year as a head coach.
Yeah, I think the important part when you're getting to be a head coach, right, is you're trying to hire just good people. You want them to be great coaches. I was fortunate that especially the defensive staff has been together for a long time, and I actually have been here with every member of the defensive staff except one in the previous time that I was here with Coach Hawk. So I knew Matt Coombs from the 1 year I spent here with him, and then Jerry Brady, Isaiah Jackson, Evan Hicks, those guys had all been here. And so it was easy from a transition standpoint. The big recruiting for me was to keep Matt Coombs here as defensive coordinator. And that was kind of the first thing I was trying to get done. When I took the job, the day I got announced, I had about 60 text messages from our team. Hey, you got to keep Coombs. You got to keep Coombs. That's offense, defense, all the players. So once we had him locked in, I felt good. Filled in the defensive staff with what we needed. And then offensively, I knew Mike Cody, our O-line coach. I'd coached with him, and I coached him as a player when he was a tight end here at Davis. And the rest of the offensive staff had been hired after I had left. Coach Hawk spoke really highly of those guys, and the players spoke really highly of those guys. And so when Lan Larison says, "Hey, I love my running back coach. I wanted to be here," that's not a hard decision to make. And the tight ends felt the same way about Coach Chapetti. And so really it was, I got to find a wide receiver coach, and I got to find someone that can coordinate the offense so I can be a head coach. And Paul Shelton had already coached here at UC Davis as a special teams coordinator, and he's a dear friend. And similar to how I felt about Coombs, once I felt like I could get Paul here, then we focused on getting a good receiver coach. So I think Toki's right. I think the continuity was important. But I think to be successful at Davis, just like we've talked about Montana State, a lot of those programs have guys that either went to school there or had coached there before. If you don't have knowledge of the inner workings of the university and the school, sometimes it can be hard to be successful there because there are specific things that you have to overcome. And so having so many guys that know Davis already has been really helpful.
When it comes to yourself being an offensive guy, an offensive coordinator for so many years in your career, was that a hard or easy decision to sort of relinquish the offensive play calling duties?
Well, I think I still call the plays, which, I knew that I was going to do as a head coach at this level for sure, because the coaching staff can change so rapidly, and I know what offensive scheme I want to run. Now, I am definitely open after how difficult this year has been to say, hey, as if this staff stays together, I could see that stopping at some point. I think the important thing for me was knowing that I can't be there throughout the day to put the game plan together and make decisions and coach the quarterback and be the head coach. And so I need someone that I trust to coach the most important position. And the position that I care about so deeply is how the quarterback is raised in our offense. And I needed someone that knew how we do that. And I need someone that I trust to make the decisions about the offense when I can't be in the room, of what we game plan and what we put in. And to have, one of my best friends and a guy that knows what I like and how I think in the room, then if I have to go away to do head coach stuff throughout the day, when I come back, at the end of the night to look at, the game plan and go over it with him, a lot of the decisions that have been made are the decisions I would have made anyway. And so I think that after that happened the first month of the season, I know for me, it took a lot of anxiety away from me to feel like I can go be a good head coach and not feel like I have to micromanage and be in the offensive meetings and coach the quarterback. And I think once that happened, it helped me be a better coach for sure.
Just tracking coaching transitions across college football and just that dynamic is always so interesting, and especially in the Big Sky, because so oftentimes when there's a new coaching staff and a new head coach, it's because the last guy lost his job, right? Like,
right.
There's something's got to get fixed, and so then you come in and you have this whole new way of doing stuff, and there's this whole wholesale change. You're seeing this with Cody Hawkins at Idaho State,
right?
You saw with Mickey Mental, even though Jay Hill did not get fired, but it's a totally different system. But then you also have seen these coaching transitions happen at UC Davis, at Montana State, where the guy before didn't get fired. And I know Brett Vegan and Jeff Choate very different at Montana State, but it is just interesting when it's a different style of transition. Like, you took over for a guy that just stepped away from the game. And I know Dan Hawkins is back helping out up there at Idaho State, family first for sure. But just being able to take over a program that had been successful before, that also, and not want to do too many things that are crazy different, that also had to sort of accelerate your guys' timeline.
Yeah, and this can't be overstated. I think I know that we're having success, and myself or Miles or Lan or Rex get a lot of publicity for that, but it can't be overstated how important Dan Hawkins has been for our program, and the steps he took in 2017 to 2023 to get us to operate at the level where we could compete with these teams. And that took time and that took effort. And I think obviously him and I were pretty lockstep in communication. And we felt more like it was a handing of the baton kind of thing. I think he had gotten the point where he wanted to be close with family, wanted to be around his grandkids, and had been doing it for so long. And the communication was, hey, it's set up. These guys need to learn how to win, how to finish. And Tim, I think we should bring you here to do that. And to get that vote of confidence from Hawk made me feel like, as a first-time head coach, as a young head coach, what better situation could I step into? I know the school. I know how to recruit to the school. I know the administration. And I know how the previous head coach ran his program, because I'm going to run it very similarly. And I think that type of trust made me feel really good about stepping into my first head coaching job. And I think we've seen the success we've had has been a lot because of Coach Hawk's unselfishness and his decision to really push my career forward. And for that, I'm forever grateful and love him a lot. And I think it's been an easier transition because of that.
It's just amazing all the things that go into building a successful football program, right? Like, you have to have so many different layers to build the foundation and then to build upon the foundation, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the cool part for me is I was here at the foundational stage. I was here when Hawk first got here, and my job was to help him build the foundation and to be a part of that, and then to be back to see where he got it after what we built was important for me, as I tried to see, well, what can I bring that can help us take the next step, and what are we missing? What are the last pieces that I need to find to put together? But I had good knowledge of that because I was here at the beginning. And so, like you said, I think it was just a unique situation, but super helpful when you're doing a head coach for the first time, because I've made a million mistakes this year that guys that have never been head coach before probably don't think about. Maybe they don't show up as much because of a lot of the stuff on the field, and the team itself was built in a way that I agree with.
I know we had Bob Dunning on my ESPN radio show, and he's sort of like the resident historian of UC Davis. He's been covering it for
Absolutely.
years and years and years and years. And yeah, I thought he said it really well. He said Dan Hawkins taught UC Davis how to be a Division I football program,
100%.
and now you guys are teaching how to win at a
Yeah.
high level as a Division I football
Yeah.
program. I thought that was a really good way to put it.
And that's exactly what I would say. And I have mentioned a couple of times, I think when he came here, Hawk came here because he loved Davis, did not have to come here,
Totally.
and chose to come here because he wanted to build it into a Division I model, get the facility built, recruit, spend the money on travel, nutrition. And then now, okay, it's set up. Tim, you need to come in here and help these guys win football games and teach them what it takes to win in December, and teach them what it takes to win the Big Sky or get close to win the Big Sky. And that's been fun for me is to teach these guys how to win and what are the traits it takes to be a winning football team. And I think Hawk spent a lot of his time trying to build the foundation, and that took a lot out of him. It takes a lot of effort to do what he did. And I think it got to the point where, hey, it's time for us to win. And I think if we can get Tim in here, those are things that we can get done. And I think for him to see that and to have that unselfish thought is something that is pretty rare in this world. So, but it's part of being a Davis guy. We kind of all think that way, and it's part of the family. And one guy hands it down to the next, and that was the same way it had been back in the day when they were successful at Division II. So it's been a really cool year because of that.
Last big picture question. Davis in the news this week because joining the Mountain West in all sports but football, staying in the Big Sky for football. So I don't know how much you can tell us about that, but just your thoughts just in general about that sort of transition.
Well, I think the first part is it's an exciting transition for our athletic program because, we've worked on trying to create a situation where we could become more of a national brand. And obviously the Mountain West has more national media involved in it. And so for our other sport programs, I think it's a wonderful step. And our Chancellor May, puts athletics at the forefront of our university now, which is really important. I think from a football standpoint, we love the Big Sky, and we are affiliates of the Big Sky, but it's only in football. And I think for us, we've always tried to fight for the Big Sky because we're so thankful to be a part of that conference. And with where our program is at this point, we're still trying to compete to win a Big Sky, and just to be at the top of the conference, it's taken us years to make that consistent. And so I know for us, we're keeping our focus on the Big Sky and what we can do to be successful and be a consistent top team in that conference. And I think with realignment in college football down the road, are there things that happen? Maybe. But just like Montana State, North Dakota State, those schools, they could easily make that transition right now at the type of money that they're able to produce. We're not at that point at our program yet. And so, but I think when you see Montana State, the Dakotas stay in the Big Sky because they realize how powerful this conference is and how powerful the Missouri Valley is. And if you're going to leave that conference, man, you better have all your ducks in a row. And the Big Sky, in my opinion, right now, could compete in the Mountain West anyway. If you took the top teams in the Big Sky, they would go right into a conference like that. But I think that's the case for top FCS teams in a group of 5 right now with the way transfers and the college football world is. I see football as no longer FBS, FCS. I see it like there's the Power 4, and then everybody else is kind of in the same market. And I would imagine that's what the Montanas and team see is the move to a group of 5 conference at this point. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense for the top level FCS teams, but there'll be a shift at some point, and when that all kind of gets ironed out, maybe it'll be different at that point. But I know our main message, I know from the football program, is how thankful we are to be in the Big Sky, and we look forward to many, many years competing here.
It's such a good point. Like we talk about that on this podcast as well as on our radio show a lot, just with the fact that there's about 40 schools at the top level that are doing it way different than everybody else. They're producing $75+ million a year on revenue, and then you got the Ohio States and Texases of the world that are producing $250 million in revenue
Right.
every year. And that's not the same as Central Michigan or Montana or UC Davis or North Dakota State or, UTEP or any of those. So
Right.
I do think we'll probably see a fracture. We could go on and on and on about conference realignment.
No doubt.
Let's talk about the FCS playoffs, including your football team and your win last week. I know when we talked last week, you said you got to be able to match the physicality and aggressiveness of Illinois State. Seemed like you did that and then some. You guys really pulled away even before halftime and then kept the pedal down and finished them off 42-10. So what did you like about the way your team played last week?
Yeah, I think just the focus, the resilience that we've shown throughout the season. I think Illinois State's obviously a great team that won 10 games and a Missouri Valley team. So like we talked about, we were going to have to match their physicality. Defensively, we were going to have to stop the run, make them be a passing team. And we did that. They had to throw the ball 60 times, which is not what a Missouri Valley team wants to do. And then offensively, with all the pressures they brought, we were able to exploit that in the pass game and the run game to create some explosives. And we knew that if we could stay the course, the explosive plays on offense would come. And if we could get in front, force them to throw the football more than they want to, now we're getting them to play the game that we want them to play. And I was proud to see our team. We had a game plan, every week now in the playoffs. How do we advance? How do we win this particular game? We set a game plan out and all three phases executed it. That's how you advance. That's how you advance in this playoff. So every week, every team's so unique. And I was telling our team the other day, it's like Mike Tyson punch out. You get past one and you go to the next guy. It's going to be harder to beat that guy. You get past that guy, it's going to be even harder to beat that guy. And every week, it's like you feel great that you just advanced, and then you open up the new door, and the new opponent on the other end of the door, you're like, oh gosh, how great are these guys? How the heck are we going to do this? So that's the fun part about the playoffs.
Well, a couple of your best players, guys we've talked about throughout the season, absolutely rose to the occasion this last week. I love seeing that when it's this time of year when guys are playing their best football as their college careers are winding down. Miles Hastings throws for 403 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also goes over 4,000 yards for the first time ever by a UC Davis quarterback, which is certainly saying something given the guys that have played quarterback over the years there at Davis. And then Land Larison, just another cool 30 touches and another cool 200 yards from scrimmage. So
Yeah.
pretty impressive. But start with Miles, just his execution last week.
Yeah, I think their defense posed some real issues because of pass protection, and then the way they played their coverages behind their pressures, it forced him to put his eyes in different places than he had all year. I thought Coach Shelton did a tremendous job preparing him for that. And then Miles is just in a great rhythm right now. He manages the protections and the tempos, knows where the ball is supposed to go, gets it out of his hand, and he distributes the ball to a lot of different players. He's playing the quarterback position, in my opinion, right now at a very high level. And when you reach that 4,000-yard mark, that's great. I think it's important to also state that he's hit the 4,000 mark and he's completing 70% of his passes. And we're not throwing bubble screens, this guy's having to do it down the field. So I think he's playing it as well or better than anyone at our level for sure, has been doing that pretty consistently. And we're going to need that to be able to advance. And then Land, I don't want to stay on the soapbox again, but it boggles my mind that anyone would have any player ahead of him at our level at this point. There's only one human that has more yards than him. It's the same human. It's Ashton Junty. That's it. There's no other person. And he's now got 2,300 plus yards for the season. And if he has the type of game he's capable of, he could have 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing at the end of our next game. And you just don't see that. And so every time we win a game, I'm fired up for our team. But the best part of winning a game is I get to coach Miles and Land one more week, and I'm going to try to treasure that as long as I can. I keep telling them I want to win these games just so I can be around those two guys for one more week.
No doubt. The other senior we got to talk about is Princeton Toki. And I interviewed him earlier today. I said, hey, love giving the big man some love. I know that you don't get a lot of love as a nose guard, and he loved it. He loved the appreciation. We've also deemed him cumulatively as the human glacier. And I asked him what he thought of the nickname. He said, I love it. He said, anytime you get a nickname when you're a nose guard, you're feeling good. You're feeling good about yourself. But, guys like him, you're never going to get any sort of statistics that's going to make people notice. Right. but it seems like he is an absolute key, if not the key factor to what you guys do defensively.
No doubt. When I got here, I talked to our entire staff. I said, hey, we're going to rank the players 1 to 100 based on their value to our team. And I want us to do that so that we can look at how we use our players and who we get the ball to, where we put these guys on defense. And I remember when we started ranking it defensively, everyone points to Rex or David Meyer or Zach Kennedy. And it was funny. Matt Coombs, our defensive coordinator, said, well, it starts with Toki. He should be the number one. And I remember all of us kind of looking at him a little funny. And he said, we don't operate without Toki. You know, what he does for our defense and what he sacrifices and what he's able to eat up, frees up Rex and frees up David, all these guys to make plays. And I thought it spoke volumes that when our team elected captains, Lan Larison obviously got a lot of votes, but the next highest vote getter was Princeton Toki. So his teammates understand his value. His teammates understand his leadership and what he brings to the table day in and day out, and the grind and sacrifice he puts in is pretty amazing. We've been able to sneak him in there on offense and have him play some fullback for us in short yardage. That's been great. Every time he goes in there, the Toki package and the offense goes nuts. And this week we used him as a decoy, and he got hit by about 4 defensive players. And he said, man, if I'm the decoy, this is awesome. So I appreciate Toki, his leadership and his effort, and rightfully so. Our defense does not operate without Toki.
Love when the interior guys get some love. You know, it's happened a couple times in the Big Sky too, where people have noticed. You know, where the nose guard gets the defensive player of the year, even if he is like a 30 tackle guy or whatever.
Absolutely.
I love that the coaches noticed that as well. Let's talk about this week's opponent, South Dakota. I've known Bob Dilson for a really long time. When I used to cover D2 back in the day, he was at Minnesota Duluth, and they were like the juggernaut of Minnesota of Division II. I mean, they had multiple national championships, and you know, he's been doing it for a really long time. He's done a great job there at South Dakota to build that thing up. But the thing about this year's team is they look like one of those teams, like in terms of, like when you watch them against South Dakota State, they were not overmatched. And everybody looks overmatched against South Dakota State, except for a couple teams. North Dakota State, same deal. So when you turn on the film, what do you see in South Dakota?
Yeah, I think juggernaut is a great word. You watch the film Sunday, you feel good about winning the last game. Hey, we're advancing. And then you put the film on, and your initial reaction is, wow, I'm not sure where to start. They obviously took South Dakota State to overtime on the road. They beat North Dakota State at home in pretty exciting fashion, and took Wisconsin down to the wire. I mean, this is an elite football team. They could make an argument that they are as good as anybody in the country. And it's hard. I don't think they really have a weakness offensively. They're extremely explosive. They run the ball well. They got great speed on the perimeter. They got great quarterback play. They're averaging as many points as anyone in the country, top 5 in the country offensively. Defensively, they're top 5 in the country. Their defensive line is tremendous. NFL players on that roster, in my opinion, especially number 90, who we know is a Buck Buchanan finalist, and what a tremendous player he is. But the whole D-line doesn't get enough credit. I know he gets a lot of stars, but, man, that whole group is ferocious. The linebacker play, the physicality of their defense as a whole, especially of the 2 safeties and the nickel. I mean, there's just not a lot of places. We're going through the third down cut up. No one – I mean, I don't know if anyone converts a third down all year against these guys. So, and then their special team is extremely solid, and they do a lot of – they had some kickoff and punt returns for touchdowns. I mean, there's just not a lot of weaknesses there. So I know offensively after Sunday, I said, I don't even know if we can get a first down right now. I'm glad we got 5 more days to figure out if we can even move the ball. And I know I went in to talk to Coach Coombs, and he's like, don't come talk to me right now. We're still trying to figure out how to stop them from getting yards. So this is a tremendous challenge. It's up there with the Montana States and the Idahos that we've played this year, that it's going to take everything we have to just be in the game. And we're going to have to play really well. But I also just love this. I love the fact that we're in the playoffs and we're playing teams like this. And, you know, when I took the job, I told our administration that, you know, we got to learn how to get to this point of the season, and you got to learn how to get past the teams that have Dakotas in their name, you know. And if you want to play at the end of the year, that's where you got to go through. And so we understand that challenge. We're excited to see what we can do. We know it's going to be a great atmosphere traveling on the road. And I'm fired up for our team. I'm excited for the opportunity, and it's just about us playing well. And if we can play well, I think we can hang in there with anybody. And man, I'm just so excited for the game and excited for the challenge of playing against a really great, great team.
Is there a factor there playing in a dome? I was thinking that last week where when you get to this time of year and you got to play outside in Brookings, everybody's up against it because
No
that's the
doubt.
worst weather in college football, period.
Yeah.
Like there is no colder place in college football than Brookings, South Dakota. But playing inside, does that play in this either one way or the other?
Look, I think anyone that's would get up in front of you and say, "No, I think we can go to Brookings and go to Bozeman this time of year, and
Right.
weather's not going to affect us. We're going to be fine." And that's all malarkey. You tell me I get to play in a dome or tell me I get to play outside in 0-degree weather, I will take the dome. And and not that it's going to be easy to play there. It's extremely loud, and their fans show up, and it's going to be problematic from that standpoint. But from a weather standpoint, to know that that's not a factor is not something you have to overcome now. I mean, if you go to Montana State or go to South Dakota State, you got to overcome the crowd and you got to overcome the weather. And now you only have to overcome the crowd, not and obviously a great football team. So, yeah, I would say anyone that ignores that fact is not telling the truth. So when we saw the bracket come out, we were looking like, are we going to have to go to Bozeman or go to Brookings or go to one of these places and to know that you have a chance to go play in a dome. I think that is something that helps us not have to worry about one other thing, which would have been tough.
When it comes to this matchup, then what sort of factors are you pointing to where you might find a sort of advantage?
Well, I think, we talk about we're going to have to be great in the kicking game, just like any week. The two games we've lost this year, we gave up a kick return for a touchdown against Cal, and we gave up a punt return for a touchdown against Montana State. And so we got to be great in the kicking game to start. And that's been a big focus all week. I think defensively, we got to do the things that we've done all year, which is we got to focus on being stout against the run. And that's what great defenses do. They take away the run and hopefully do enough on offense to make them a one-dimensional team, and then hopefully rush the passer and get after him when we need to. And then offensively, it's figuring out a way to get a run game going against that front and get Land his touches and get him the things he needs, and then protect Miles so that he can get the ball out on time and have good progressions and devise a good game plan that'll get guys open. And on offense, obviously, try to take the crowd out of it and be great in our pre-snap and our cadence so that the crowd doesn't become a factor. So the good thing is these are all things we've had to do all year. We had to go to Montana and deal with crowd noise and overcome that. We've had to play great rushing attacks like Montana State and figure out ways to try to stop the run. And we've had to block great fronts like Idaho and Montana State to try to protect Miles. So we've seen teams that are similar to this, and we're going to try to figure out ways to hopefully improve on the things that we didn't do well in those games and keep doing the things we did have success with in those games. So got to be great in the kicking game, got to try to be great against the run, and got to try to find ways to get Land the ball and protect Miles.
Last thing then, a win would get you to the deepest place Davis has ever been in the FCS playoffs. So what do you think of this opportunity? What would that mean for your program to get in the Final Four?
This is why I came here. We've never won a national championship at UC Davis. In the Division II world, we went 20 consecutive conference championships and went to the playoffs, went to the semis, went to the finals, could never win the last game. Now that I feel like we're the type of Division I FCS team that can compete. 2018 got to the quarters, lost a real close game to Eastern, went to the playoffs in 22 and lost to South Dakota State. We've got to get to the point where we can play in these games and overcome it. And to think that we could get here in year one, I'd be lying if I didn't think that was going to happen. But like I told our team when we got picked for the playoffs, it's not that we're overlooking any team, but if we're in the playoffs, our goal should be to win it. And we got to find ways to do that. So I'm excited for our team. It obviously would be a monumental moment for our program to show that we can get to that point. And like I told our team at the start of the week, the only thing in the way of progress is focusing on your last success. We got to move past the things that we've done and look forward to the things that are possible. and we got to play our best football when our best is needed. There's only 8 teams left, and it's all the 8 seeded teams. And to be part of those 8 teams is a huge step for our program, but there's more out there to achieve. I'm committed to being here to try to get that done. And to have the opportunity to do it in year one, we got to try to take advantage of it. And we got to give it everything we have on Saturday to see if we can get that done. And if we can, it'll be a great moment. And then we'll get back on Sunday and keep our focus forward. So it's going to be a tremendous challenge and a great team. And I'm feeling grateful to be a part of it, but we're going to give it everything we have to get it done.
Well, it's been a fun run to follow so far, and we hope it continues. Tim Plough here on Aggies After Dark. Thanks for that breakdown, as well as the Skyline Sports YouTube channel. Coach, best of luck this weekend, and thanks so much for taking some time.
I have many motivations this week, Colter, to get this done, but at the top of the list is to win so that we can have Aggies After Dark next week again, brother. So appreciate it, man.